Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're shining a massive spotlight on a topic that literally millions of students quietly relate to, but we almost never hear it talked about openly. We're talking about what it's truly like to live at home during college. If you've ever felt like your college experience is, well, entirely different from the movies, you're definitely in the right place. We're going to break down the emotional, social, and practical realities of commuting. And most importantly, we're going to focus on finding ways to actually balance your home life with your campus life. So let's get right into it and validate an experience that is just way too often overlooked. You see, this living situation builds a completely different daily rhythm. On one hand, you've got the dorm dream, that classic expectation where you just roll out of bed, take a 5-minute stroll across a beautiful quad to class, and pop into events totally spontaneously. But then there's the commuter reality, and wow, the physical toll is real. We're talking about those brutal early mornings, fighting through bumper-to-bumper traffic, the absolute chaos of hunting for a parking spot, and ultimately arriving on campus already exhausted before your first lecture even begins. You can't just stay late on a whim. You've got to map out the whole shebang. It's a totally different version of the college experience, one that demands a lot more effort and a ton more planning right out of the gate just to find some kind of equilibrium. Section 1. Feeling the campus disconnect. The quiet loneliness. I actually want us to slow down for a second here, because the toll of commuting isn't just physical, right? It's deeply emotional. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it highlights that living in two separate worlds often leaves commuter students grappling with a very specific, kind of quiet sense of isolation. I mean, you miss out on those spontaneous late-night hangouts, you naturally aren't a part of that ingrained dorm culture, and honestly, this often leads to feeling like an outsider hovering around the edges of established friend groups. Perhaps the most striking example is that distinct, heavy feeling of packing up your backpack to drive home while you watch everyone else casually bonding and making plans for the evening. If you felt this, trust me, you are not alone. It's a very real disconnect that happens when you're caught between campus and home. I want you to really listen to this quote. This disconnect doesn't mean you are doing college wrong. It means the structure of your life makes connection harder to access. Seriously, let that sink in for a moment. Your feelings of isolation or, FOMO, they're a structural issue, not a personal failure. It's a completely valid challenge that deserves to be acknowledged rather than just brushed off as you not trying hard enough. Your schedule simply operates on a completely different set of parameters. Section 2. Balancing home and campus. Navigating two worlds. So we've talked about the friction on campus, but what happens when you turn the key and actually walk back through your front door? Well, this is where the clash between your heavy college responsibilities and your family life really comes to a head. You walk in from a long day of classes and boom, suddenly you're expected to immediately help around the house. Because you're physically there, your family just assumes you're always available. Your massive university workload? Yeah, deeply misunderstood. In a lot of ways, you might feel like you're being treated exactly like you were back in high school, with your daily choices and your complex schedule constantly being questioned by the people you live with. It is incredibly frustrating to manage the heavy expectations of a degree while simultaneously managing the expectations of your household. Okay, let's dive into this, because this tension really comes down to a concept called emotional friction. And this is defined as growing into independence while living in a dependent environment. So if you're constantly feeling a sense of tension at home, well, this is why. It's completely normal. You're undergoing a massive life transition, becoming a fully independent adult, but you're physically anchored in the exact same dependent environment you grew up in. That contradiction, it creates a daily emotional friction. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you for feeling this tension. It's simply the reality of two major life stages overlapping under one roof. Section 3, strategies that actually help. Building the bridge. All right, so how do we actually fix this? Now that we've validated the challenges, it's time to empower ourselves. Here's how to actually bridge the gap between your home life and your campus life with total confidence. Step 1, create a campus block schedule. Actually, scratch that rushing back and forth for individual classes. Stay on campus for longer, continuous starches. Use this block time to study, socialize, and go to events, totally reducing that chaotic feeling of rushing in and out. Step 2, build friendships deliberately through classes and clubs. Focus on connections that don't just rely on living in the same dorm hallway. And step 3, find commuter-friendly spaces. Seek out study lounges, libraries, or local cafes. You really need to claim a space that feels like a second home on campus, like a base camp where you can decompress between your academic and personal worlds. And hey, when you do get home, setting healthy boundaries against family expectations is absolutely crucial. As we can see, if your family expects you to be always available, you need to clearly and firmly communicate your specific study hours. Treat it like a real job schedule they can see. Or if they expect chores on demand, you've got to sit down and negotiate your need for dedicated quiet time. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you don't care about your family, right? It means you're taking your workload seriously, and you're teaching them to respect the really heavy demands of your college career. So, the crucial point is letting go of comparison. You just have to embrace your own path. Commuting isn't less college, it just requires a totally different kind of emotional resilience and meticulous planning. Once you stop measuring your experience against a completely different living situation, you free yourself up to actually enjoy the unique path you're on and, finally, find that true balance. Section 4. Validating your college path. Your experience matters. Everything we've covered today points to one resounding conclusion, especially if you've been feeling like you're somehow missing out on the quote-unquote real college experience. Your path is valid. Your challenges are real. You are building your future to fit your life. Living at home doesn't make your college experience smaller, and it certainly doesn't make you any less independent. In fact, managing the logistics, the emotional friction, and the boundaries we've discussed today, that takes an immense amount of maturity. Commuter students deserve just as much support, recognition, and encouragement as anyone living in a dorm on campus. You are doing something incredibly challenging, and that is something to be deeply proud of. We're going to leave you with this final question to ponder. Your college experience is a different blueprint. So how will you build your future today? You've got the tools, you understand the emotional friction, and you know exactly how to set those boundaries. Take pride in your unique journey, embrace the resilience you've built, and go out there and own your path. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and we'll catch you next time.